play. I can tell you exactly why strangers quit your good game, and that without ever seeing it. It's not art or code, and it's not the algorithm. It's one gap that gets wider the better your game is, which means the best devs get hit the hardest. Give me 90 seconds and I'll prove it, and then I'll hand you the test that closes it. Start with the part you'd never expect. You assume a polished professional game earns a stranger more patience than some little rough prototype, but the opposite is true. The cleaner your game looks, the faster a stranger judges it, and the harder they fall when the first 5 minutes don't match. This feels backwards, so let me show you the exact mechanism. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it in your own game. Picture a moment. A stranger clicks your game because something in the thumbnail or the store page made them a promise. They press play, and for the next 90 seconds, their brain runs on one silent question, and that is this the thing I was promised? And if the answer wavers even slightly, they will leave. And they will leave believing your game was bad when it was just unclear for 90 seconds. And I learned this the hard way with my demo, before I ever shipped anything. My game's screenshots and game page sold speed, chaos, big shots of cars drifting sideways in smoke, and the first actual minute dropped you into a slow menu and a tutorial corner with no traffic. And that build is still on my drive somewhere. Every single person who tried that demo call did the same thing. They waited for about 40 seconds for the speed I promised, they didn't get it, and they closed it. The game got really fun a few minutes later. Nobody on Earth made it to that minute. The demo told me everything I need to know. So why does this hit good games the hardest? Because the disappointment was never about quality, it's about distance. A player shows up with a picture in their head, built from your genre, your title, your thumbnail, or a screenshot, and that made them click. That picture you made is a promise. Your first 5 minutes either pay off or they don't. And the size of the letdown is just the distance between the two. Now here's why good games make it worse. A sharp title, a clean thumbnail, a professional store page all raise the promise. You're a competent dev, so your packaging is convincing, so the picture in a stranger's head gets big, specific, and loud. And your careful, well-paced, properly taught 5 minutes lands under that big picture, and the fall is way longer than it would have been for some small, ugly little game that promised nothing. And if you're sitting here and think you're the exception because the feedback you got was good, that feedback came from friends or people in your Discord who already knew what the genre is supposed to be. You handed them the right picture to the right person. A stranger gets that of a thumbnail, and he gets none of that. A stranger is the one who decides whether you grow. The cruel twist is the better your craft is, the bigger the promise you make is by accident, and the more you precisely have to land it. Quality raises those stakes really high, especially for the first 5 minutes, but the fix lives inside them entirely, and it starts with naming the promise you're actually making. So here's the part that took me years to figure out, and I call it the promise gap. The promise gap is the distance between one feeling your packaging promises and the feeling a stranger actually gets in the first 5 minutes. Your entire job before you touch anything else is just to drag that gap to zero. Now, you're probably thinking, I'll just add more content, more polish, a better tutorial, and I thought exactly the same thing. I was wrong, and that's the exact reason more never fixes it. A player's verdict doesn't form slowly, it forms in the first real moment that they get, and then it's locked in. Land the promised feeling early, and they read the rest of your game really great. Small flaws can turn into a charm, but miss it early and they read everything else with suspicion. Even the best work feels slightly off because their brain already decided it wasn't the thing you promised. So the game that wins isn't a better game. It's the one whose first 5 minutes deliver that exact feeling that the thumbnail sold. A fine game that nails its promise out-retains a brilliant game that buries its payoff behind a tutorial, and that is every single time. In about a minute, I'll hand you the 90-second test that finds this gap on your own and how to fix it. But the reason it works comes down to one line. Players are not grading your craft, they're checking whether you keep your word as a developer. If breakdowns like this are what you build with, subscribe, new ones come every week. Now the how and how you can run it this week. Pause for 10 seconds and answer one question. If a stranger landed on your thumbnail right now, what is the feeling that they get to promise? One word, it could be speed, dread, coziness, power, or maybe something else. If you can't name it fast, that's your first problem. Comment that one word down below. But here's how you close that gap. It's 3 steps and runnable within this week. First, name the promise. Look at your own thumbnail and title the way a stranger would and write down one feeling that you want to sell. Not 3, one that really dominates. The word is your first contact with the player. Secondly, timestamp the payoff. Open your build, start a timer, find the exact second a brand new player first feels that promised thing. And now, when it gets explained, when it actually gets felt. If your thumbnail screams speed, the first real moment of speed lands in the first 2 minutes. You have 2 minutes of a promise gap, and that's your whole problem, and it's sitting on a stopwatch. And thirdly, drag the moment to the front. Whatever you have to cut, skip, or preload to make the promise feel happen in the first 30 seconds, you do it. Tutorial later, story later, menu smaller. The promise feeling is priority number 1. It comes first, before you earned the right to make anyone wait. That's your entire audit. Name it, time it, and move it to the front. Now watch 2 devs launch the same good game. Dev 1 is really proud of his depth. His thumbnail shows a really cool combat shot, so strangers arrive expecting to feel powerful. He opens with a 10-minute tutorial that teaches the systems properly because he's a really good developer and good developers teach. Every stranger waits about a minute for the power of the thumbnail that was promised to him, but he gets a menu and a text box instead, so he leaves. His median playtime is about 90 seconds, but he blames discoverability. Then there is Dev 2. Dev 2 has the same combat, the same depth, the same tutorial, but she ran the promise audit. Her thumbnail promised power, so the first thing the player does before a single line of explanation is to land an absurd, satisfying hit that drops 3 enemies at once. And that promise pays off in 80 seconds. Then the tutorial, then the depth. Same game, same content, and her median playtime is 90 minutes. Because every player crossed the gap in the first moment they played it and read everything else with a thing they were promised. It's not a quality difference. Both games are really good. It's a promise gap difference. And only one of them measured it. If you want a place to find your own gap, my Discord is in the description. There's a channel where devs drop off their thumbnails and their first 90 seconds, and strangers can tell you the exact second the promise either landed or broke. Someone who shows up with no picture in their head except the one you gave them. Players never judge how good your game is. They judge the gap between what you promised and what they felt in the first 5 minutes. And good games carry the biggest promises of all. And the growth was never in minute 10. It was in minute 1. So tonight, look at your thumbnail. Name one feeling that sells. Open your build and find the exact second that feeling actually happens. The distance between those two is the only thing between a good game and a game people actually stay in. If breakdowns like this are what you build with, subscribe, hit the bell, new ones come every week, and drop the numbers down below, the one word in your thumbnail that it promises, and the timestamp it actually happens in your build. That gap is the whole video. And with that, I hope I'll see you in the next one.